Before they thought they had COVID, we could see it in their sleep charts. We're able to look at 250 million nights of sleep, basically 2 billion hours of sleep, and find patterns very easily.
Back in the late 90s, he was the first person ever to send a photo from his mobile phone over the internet.
Daycare would call up, "Your daughter doesn't want to sleep, come get your kid." And it turns out there's nothing wrong with your daughter. She doesn't sleep like other kids. Don't think that drinking a glass of wine before going to bed is going to make your sleep better. It doesn't. It's the opposite. Cool temperature in the bedroom. The cooler the temperature, the better sleep recovery, sleep quality is. From everything we see, quality of sleep is more important than duration of sleep. The species that survive are not the strongest or the smartest. They're the ones that are the most responsive to change. Biggest risk in telehealth is not doing it. We might be able to build a predictive system that would help catch things before symptoms even appear.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Compound Wisdom Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Sood. Now, today's guest is really one of those people where if you didn't know his name, you definitely felt his impact. Back in the late 90s, he was the first person ever to send a photo from his mobile phone over the internet. Now, that moment, not only did it end up in Forbes, it really helped kick off the entire idea of camera phones and real-time photo sharing. That's the kind of pattern with Philippe. He builds things that really quietly change how entire industries work. Now, fast forward to today, he's not only a technologist, a scientist, and really a founder who's turned the same mindset towards sleep and health. And I label him as a sleep king. His systems have captured millions of nights of sleep, so we can really stop guessing and start looking at what the data is actually saying. Now, we're going to be talking about how a question about his own daughter's sleep turned into a massive body of evidence. What most people get wrong about sleep, alcohol, melatonin, naps, and really screens, and how he thinks about building companies through the lens of Darwin. Not the strongest or the smartest survive, but the most adaptable. Really excited for this one. Philippe, welcome to the Compound Wisdom Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, Philippe, one of the first things I want you to touch on is how in the heck did you get, into the world of sleep and how Full Power started?
So it was pretty simple. When we had our daughter, she was a camera phone baby. The first camera phone I built was to share her picture, and timing was just right.
Mm-hmm.
And the camera phone baby, her name is Sophie. When she was 2 years old, we would Sonia and myself, we would get her to daycare, and daycare would call up at like around noon and all that, says, "Your daughter doesn't want to sleep. All the other kids are all going to sleep. She doesn't want to sleep." When that lasted for 2 weeks, they said, "Come get your kid. We can't keep her." So we just said, "Oh, something's wrong with her or something like that," because all the other kids, they do all that, right? And so it turns out at the time, I also sail sailboats, and it turns out that the first lab for sleep science really was at Harvard Medical School. It was a lab for chronobiology. It was run by a gentleman called Claudio Stumpi, and Claudio is of Brazilian origin, but is also a sailor, and I got to know him from that. And I said, "Claudio, can you help me with this?" He says, "Well, it's going to be the summer. You live in Santa Cruz. It's really nice over there, and can do some sailing, and we can take a look at your daughter." So he came over, and we created these little bracelets that used a piezo sensor that would measure the micromotions of our wrist, but mainly of Sophie's wrist, our daughter. But also we all started to wear them, and we wore them for probably a month. That's right. And we would download all that microsensor data to a spreadsheet and analyze it by hand. Pretty much at the time, we didn't have the tools that we have today. And after a while, Claudia said, "There's nothing wrong with your daughter. It's just she doesn't sleep like other kids. She doesn't need to take a nap, and she sleeps perfectly well at night." And when you analyze micromotion of the wrist, you can get a pretty good idea of sleep architecture, and so we could figure out how much deep sleep and light sleep she had, Claudia said, there's nothing wrong with her. And so from that perspective, I said, this is really interesting. And as a sailor, of course, it became interesting because we tend to sail across oceans shorthanded. And we basically, when you sail shorthanded across oceans, you don't sleep much. You're sleep deprived all the time. You're
Right.
lucky if you ever sleep more than 25, 30 minutes because there's only two of you on the boat. Or so we learned what can we do to optimize our performance. And so that's Claudio was really very helpful because he tuned us to the notion of polyphasic sleep and how you want to manage that. And that got me into sleep. And then our next project, we said, we should do something where we bring some of that wisdom and hopefully more in that to the world in tools that everyone could potentially use, and of course that medical practitioners can use to help their patients sleep better.
Nice. Yeah, that's amazing. How did you with full power, how did that transition and what are some of the things that you guys what kind of tools, I guess, more importantly, do you guys use for sleep? And we'd love for you to touch on how many nights of sleep that you've studied because that's
Well,
the number itself is phenomenal.
so we what we said is the gold standard is polysomnography. So we set up two sleep labs in our offices
Mhm.
and collected label data basically, and worked together with the initial sensors, which were basically wrist-based sensors, and then we decided that the wrist stuff is fine, but it's invasive. A lot of people don't want to wear it. You have to recharge it. You have to do that. So we created a sensing system that basically is invisible, always on, which is a bunch of sensors that we designed ourselves that we put under the mattress, not over the mattress, but under the mattress. So they become completely invisible. They don't get in the way if you make up your bed, and that actually are able to capture the relevant information from any mattress. And though that was a little bit challenging because we had to support any mattress. So that meant that we had to build a self calibration system, and we called it AI at the time because
Yeah.
the system was artificially intelligent to figure out without seeing it or being told what the mattress is. And so, there's thin foam mattresses, there are thick foam mattresses, there are mattresses with coils, there's water beds, etc. And so we figured out how to make all that work and use the polysomnography labs to create the label data. And then we started using machine learning and tools such as TensorFlow and others to create models that could help us um, determine sleep architecture
Mhm.
as accurately or close to as accurately as gold standard polysomnography, but also, approach other metrics. And, I know one that you really care about is, um, I mean, there are many you care about, HRV, for example, um, and many others. And so we gradually developed the system, and we're fortunate enough to connect with Stanford Sleep Medicine, and we work with them to actually validate our solution, um, including arousal indexes and stuff like that. And that allowed us to build a system that's quite helpful, and that allows us to look at data in the long term. So our system is a combination of um, edge sensing and cloud management. So basically, we keep a longitudinal view of sleep. So we have some subjects that have 5, 6 years worth of sleep data
Wow.
continuously recorded.
Yeah.
And we're able to use the tools that we build to actually analyze that and then be able to find small changes or big changes, whatever it is, and figure out trends, etc., which are fascinating. I mean, I'll give you an example. For example, when the pandemic happened, we had the we had 100,000 people sleeping every night or something
Yeah.
during the pandemic, and we could see the changes, and we could see that from before, during the pandemic, we could see from their sleep patterns um, whether they had caught COVID,
Uh,
how they were recovering, etc. So that became great tool for us because it was like this way of capturing
you were
accurately.
able to through their sleep, you were able to know if they had COVID or not or caught it.
Yeah, we were able to. Yeah, well, we couldn't. We we guessed that they probably did because there was a COVID pandemic.
Yeah.
What what we found is that we looked at what happened in the prior years using our tools
Mhm.
during flu season. And you could see when people got the flu, their average heart rate went significantly up. It never it took several weeks to recover, etc. And we knew that some of these subjects had the flu, so we had a pretty good idea of that. We saw a similar pattern, but worse, actually, during the pandemic, because we could see that someone who had a low heart rate, someone who had a low breathing rate, suddenly every every one of those vitals changed.
Yeah.
And so we figured that with that. And then with some people, I mean, we do everything anonymously, but some of our subjects, they agree to for us to contact them, and then we contact them. Did you have COVID at this time, that time? And say, yeah, I did. How did you know?
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, before they thought they had COVID, we could see it in their sleep charts
Wow.
because we could see the changes happening, and that's really, a very interesting, a very interesting part of sleep is that we believe that there are metrics, and that includes heart rate, respiration rate, heart rate variability, respiration variability, which is the equivalent for respiration of what heart rate variability is for heart rate, arousal indexes, um, and more, are signposts of changes in health.
Yeah.
And before you see symptoms, or if people experience symptoms, or they even if they take a test, we see sleep changing, and that's the beauty of doing, I think, what we do, which is not just how did you sleep last night. Of course, we do that, and we tell you how you slept and
Yeah.
what to expect for your performance. But it's, we believe, really important to look at, on the aggregate, the longitudinal history of your sleep, and actually look for those micro changes. And if we can do more of that, which we're doing, we think that we might be able to build a predictive system that would help catch things before symptoms even appear.
Using AI, of course.
Yeah, I mean that the point of AI, you can call it AI if you want, but
Yeah.
it is AI. We
Yeah.
do AI. We're an AI company, but the reality is, the AI tools can manipulate the amount of data that no human could, or even a million humans wouldn't have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just brute force, and so that's the beauty of these AI tools that we have, is that we're able to look at 250 million nights of sleep, which is basically 2 billion hours of sleep,
Wow.
and find patterns very easily.
That's amazing. So is that could you touch a little bit more on like how much data you've collected and really the importance of data to everything that you do in your company and overall and your mindset around it?
Well, the concept of algorithms and models for all this is to use the data to continually improve the system. Basically, the more data you get,
Hmm.
the more you narrow the gap to accuracy. So, for example, if we're 95% as accurate at gold-centered polysomnography today, our goal 6 months from now to be 96 or 96.5%
Yeah.
accurate. And that's possible by using machine learning, continuing to build label data,
Yep.
and fundamentally use the state of the art tools that we have to create models that are very high fidelity to represent uh, our subject's sleep.
Nice. Now, Philippe, for the common listener, what are some pieces of advice that you can give them, to get better sleep?
uh, I'll tell you, you can read this in a lot of places, but I think the number one thing is less stress,
Yeah.
because stress is people just brush that aside, but less stress is a great. It's pretty immediate to see that. But what we found from measuring things is that don't think that drinking a glass of wine or some alcohol or some other substance before going to bed is going to make your sleep better. It doesn't.
Hmm.
It's the opposite. You think it is, but it doesn't, and we can measure that by looking at arousal indexes and other metrics. Um, cool temperature in the bedroom. Our system monitors the bedroom environment, and it's very clear that the cooler the temperature, the better sleep recovery, sleep quality is. Um, of course, if you can afford a bed that has temperature control, that's even better because um, you know most people get hot during the night,
Hmm.
and that is not helpful because as we get through phases of sleep, the the impact of heat changes. But so temperature, air quality, and air quality means open the window. It's very clear that when you keep a bedroom closed and you see the amount of carbon dioxide increase, sleep quality decreases because you breathe a lot of carbon dioxide, has an immediate impact on you. Um, I I think that people say don't use your phone before going to bed. It's difficult to tell that to people nowadays when they have
Right.
kids or they have a life. So I'm not even going to say that. I think if you focus on temperature, you don't eat 3 hours before going to bed. You avoid alcohol and other substances, um, and i- the more active you are during the day, um, I think that's a great start.
Okay.
And keep on and one thing is keep on looking at the analysis of your sleep because what I find myself
Hmm.
is that sleep is always different.
Yeah.
There's the middle of the night at 4 a.m. the ambulance that comes screaming in wakes you up and you don't fall asleep again. So although you thought that tonight would be different than yesterday, it's not going to be. Or the pet comes on the door if you have a kid on the bed, or if you have a kid, there's a kid that's sick. There's all these things that happen
Hmm.
to us. Life happens to us all the time, right?
Yeah.
And so all of this is impactful. So if you keep track of your sleep and the differences and the changes, I think you will understand yourself much more what impacts you and what doesn't impact you. The big picture stuff is what we talked about, temperature, air quality. Um, don't eat 3 hours before going to bed if you can. Um, and don't think that wine and others are going to help you sleep better. It's the opposite. I think that's a good start if people do that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, I guess, what are your thoughts around melatonin and other supplements that people take for sleep? And I know you've done a lot of, you have a lot of data to back up what you're about to say as well.
Well, that's not my specialty, but what I've read
Mhm.
multiple times recently is that the long-term use of melatonin can be very harmful. And so before, I understand people use melatonin and all that. Um, I think that people should read all the studies. I mean, I don't have any advice for people. I don't know. You probably know more than that, than
Yeah.
what I know, but there's plenty of the study shows that if you take melatonin once or twice, that's fine. But people who take it every day, I think, may have an impact uh, on their health, a negative one.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with Ambien and all these guys. From the studies we did and from what we see, people take this and they feel good that they're going to sleep better. I think some of it is very subjective, and you see maybe 10 minutes longer sleep, but much more disrupted sleep.
Mhm.
So all these kind of stuff. You think you sleep more, you sleep better, but maybe your sleep is even more disrupted. But although it's longer, uh, we think that from what everything we see, quality of sleep is more important than duration of sleep.
Okay, that was actually going to be my next question. Is how long? There's obviously a lot of different opinions on this question specifically, but how long do you think someone should sleep on every single given night?
Well, I'm not an opinion person. I believe in the data.
Yep.
So we've done a big study about that.
Mhm.
And what we did is, we have over 200,000 people sleeping every night. So we have a pretty good idea. And so what we do is we look at, so just a little background. When you fall asleep and you have reconstructive sleep, I mean, good sleep, you'll see your resting heart rate go down through the night as you go through phases of sleep. And then it goes back up when you get up. I mean, that's a normal pattern.
Mhm.
What we see is that the max that people get down is around 8 hours of sleep. Some people between 7 and 8 hours of sleep, up to maybe eight and a half, 9 hours of sleep. Past 9 hours of sleep, that curve changes direction and your resting heart rate goes up. So, from everything we see, you do not want to sleep too much and you don't want to sleep too little.
Mhm.
And anywhere between 6.5 to 8 hours would be really good. It's always easy to give that advice to people, but a lot of people do not have 8 hours to sleep because they have kids, they have a job, they have all that. So we need to help them sleep the best they can with whatever sleep budget they have.
Yeah.
I'm always concerned about people, you have to sleep this long. I think it really depends on the night and what's happening in your life. And what happens is that people start being stressed by the fact that, oh, I didn't sleep the prescribed 7.5 hours or something like that. Oh, therefore this is terrible. And then they get stressed and their sleep gets worse. And next night, it, it shouldn't work that way. I think we need to accept for how long we have and then try to maximize the quality of sleep.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's a very, very good point. Now, let's talk about your company, Full Power, and some of the companies that you work with. So obviously, you went the licensing model, and one of the companies you work with is Tempur-Pedic. But can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we're a technology company. We build technology. We're a science-based company, and so we license our technology to others. So Tempur-Pedic, for example, is a licensee of ours,
Mhm.
and so basically we help them build the Tempur-Pedic smart bed by embedding our technology with adjustable bases, adjustable beds that can change shape, three-piece shapes, and and build in the sensors and help their customers sleep better.
Mhm. Nice. And what other companies, I mean, do you guys work with as well besides Tempur-Pedic?
So we work with medical companies. We have a customer, a partner called Ansible Health that's focused on COPD patients.
Mhm.
We have Sleep Lab, for example, the Sleep and Brain Lab, Dr. Anil Rama's business. We're working with a new one called, we're starting to work with them, called Peninsula Sleep Center, which is also a Silicon Valley based sleep lab
Mhm.
run by Dr. Marin Farid,
Mhm.
and also a very pioneering person like Sleep and Brain. And those are examples. We also um, are piloting our technology in retirement communities and others because basically what we have is a remote patient monitoring system,
Mhm.
RPM, uh, that basically remotely monitors um, sleepers.
Mhm.
And so we have a dashboard that's made for practitioners like yourself,
Mhm.
where if you have, well, for example, Sleep and Brain uses that. He has over 200 patients on the system. And so he has a dashboard and he can see every night who slept this way, who slept that way, who had the most AHI, who had the worst arousal indexes and all that stuff. Presented in a dashboard with a, in a list with all the metrics shown. And so that's very exciting to us because there are a lot of applications. Obviously, sleep medical centers is a great one, but we think that retirement communities, um, assisted living, et cetera, can really use our system.
Yeah, definitely. And what are your goals with the company in the next like 3 to 5 years, would you say? And obviously, you want your product out there even more so, but what are your goals from a very high level?
The way I think about things, I think about the technology. I think our goal is to help the world sleep better and have better health.
Right.
If we can do that, the rest will follow. The financials will follow, and all that.
Yeah.
I've never, I've never pursued any of my businesses to, oh, geez, we got to have an exit. We need to get money made or whatever it is. Yeah, it's an important fact, but
Are
it's
you sure you're not from Silicon Valley? I was just messing with you.
well, I'm, a, I'm what the original Silicon Valley was. The spirit of Silicon Valley was more as a spirit of uh, of innovation and interest in technology.
Yeah.
Uh, now it's more. Now it's more. How would I say? Marketing and trying to monetize marketing or some idea. Uh, there's still a lot of people building technology, but we're not the part of those who are trying to rapidly monetize whatever they did.
Yeah.
Uh, of course, we're business people, we're a business, but we really are focused on helping the world sleep better, improve their health.
Now, Philippe, you mentioned something that really stood out to me, and I want you to share it with everybody. Where you talked about you really didn't build businesses, in a sense of, hey, I want to have an exit or anything like that. Talk about how you really entered all of your businesses and your mindset around why you entered it and how
Well,
you got success.
it's it's a bit what we were just saying. The bottom line is that I'm passionate about what I do, and I'm a technologist, a scientist.
Yeah.
I'm not a pure business person. So naturally, what I do is pretty impacted by that approach.
Mhm.
Uh, I don't say, "Oh, let's get an exit strategy and figure out how to get there." I'm more interested about what is it that we're going to do that's really helpful and useful and then the rest will follow. That's really been always my approach.
Yeah.
I think it's very difficult. I mean, it takes a different kind of person to say, okay, we're going to focus on the exit strategy no matter what we do, and let's focus on that. That's not what I do.
Yeah. You said something to me where you said all you care about is helping people and get better sleep, and the rest just kind of follows. And I really, really love that. Um,
That's a great.
yeah. Philippe, let's talk about one of your favorite topics. I'm sure it's Darwin. Can you describe your mindset on how you perceive things? And I know you study Darwin a lot.
Well, I'm Darwin for me is, especially the evolution of a species. That book is the best book ever written, and the most important book from a scientific standpoint,
Mhm.
and even from a business standpoint. People always tell the world that Darwin believed that it's survival of the fittest. That's not what you find in Darwin. To paraphrase Darwin, um, it's more like the species that survive are not the strongest or the smartest. They're the ones that are the most responsive to change. And that concept of response to change is, I think, fundamental in a lot of things that we do. And it's true also for our bodies. Our body need to respond to change. The environment changes, we need to respond. If it's cold outside, our internal thermostat should be good enough to adjust itself, et cetera, et cetera. But in the world of businesses, I think the being able to respond to change is very important. But in the world of science, that's true too.
Mhm.
And so for me, that's the best. The species that survive are not the smartest, not the strongest. They're the ones that are most responsive to change.
Last question. One of the last few questions I'm going to ask you is responsive. Is change itself. Where do you think the world is going with AI? And how do you think we're going to respond to it, or how do you think we are responding to it? I should say.
So, there's a lot of dogma around AI. There's the first thing that we all use is tools,
Mhm.
uh, like machine learning, et cetera. That's part of AI. I mean, classically.
Yeah.
So that's really useful because the idea is to learn from the data,
Yeah.
create algorithms that are derived from the data. Basically, instead of talking about opinions,
Yeah.
what does the data show? So that's the first one. The second thing is then what people are doing with LLMs, large language models,
Mhm.
and also um, large action models. And some people will say, "Well, this is not AI," or "This is AI." I think that's a very academic discussion. What is um, artificial general intelligence, which is one of the things that people are looking at,
Mhm.
and um, my thing is, what's the point? I mean, fine, creating robots that are smarter than humans and can respond to the world better than we do. Fine, people are welcome to do that. But today, that's really not practical. And I think that we've all experienced the power of tools like Perplexity, ChatGPT, and others, and how they're very helpful in the world of biosensing, medicine, engineering, and other.
Pretty much
And
everything. Yeah.
these iterations, I think, is very helpful. And I think that all the is it AGI or is it not AGI? To me, that doesn't matter much. And then you have the other range of people who say, "Oh, look at how much money is being spent on these things. They'll never get a return on investment. It's bad." And my reaction to that is, guess what? If some investors want to spend money on doing all that, more power to them because I get to use the tools.
Right. Yeah.
If they don't get any return,
We
that's
do.
their problem, not mine.
Yeah.
That doesn't get me upset at all. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, great, losing all that money. I mean, fine, thank you. I'm thankful actually.
Yeah.
So so I think there's a lot of funny discussions happening. But in general, as you know, what people call AI and AI in general, as this is known today, is getting embedded pretty much with everything.
Yeah.
It's writing a memo, it's a spreadsheet, it's if you write software, is having the AI help you debug a system. It's all the different things that you're going to do with this AI. It's being able to build a system like we have
Yeah.
for sleep.
Yeah.
Without those AI tools, we wouldn't be able to continually improve the system, and provide value to customers. Looking at longitudinal studies of one's sleep and how the AI can actually look for rules and et cetera. That's a big deal.
Yeah. It's an amazing time to say the least. One of the traditions that we have, Philippe, on the podcast is the previous, person that I interviewed. They actually have a question for you, so I'm going to ask you that question, and then the next part is you're actually going to have a one blind question for the next person I'll be interviewing as well. So the previous person is actually a really good friend of mine and a 50-state licensed doctor. We're now in the regenerative space. He wanted to ask you, where do you see the biggest risk in the telehealth space and why?
I gotta think think about that one. So I think, okay, I'm going to be provocative here. I think the biggest risk in telehealth, remote patient monitoring in today's world is not doing it.
What do you mean?
Not having telehealth and not having remote patient monitoring, because I think that given the scarcity of physicians, the difficulty of people being moved to, the fact that there are a lot of places where people can't get to physicians. I'm talking about the whole world.
Yeah.
I think that we need to accelerate the move to telehealth and remote patient monitoring,
Yeah.
uh, for regular folks, for retirement communities, for people who are isolated, etc. And I think we have the tools. We learned from the pandemic that remote monitoring actually works pretty well.
Yeah.
And look, we never met, but we've met, and we had a great discussion.
Yeah.
That's a form of telehealth in many ways. So it's a little provocative what I'm saying, but the I would say that the biggest risk is not doing it. The biggest risk to our society. That's what
Yeah.
I mean, not of an individual.
Hey, I love that answer, especially being in the space. So the next question is, what's one blind question that you have for the next person on the podcast?
Well, who's that person? What are they specialized in?
I can't
Oh,
say it's a blind question. It can be any question about anything that you want to ask them.
have you looked at the quality of your sleep today, yesterday, and a week ago? And if so, what did you find?
Okay. Perfect question coming from you. I love it. Philippe, that was amazing. Thank you again for your time. And we're very, very grateful to have you on the podcast.
Well, it was great. Thank you for having me. And again, I hope I answer all those questions in a
Amazing.
constructive way, and it was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thank you guys.